Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid throughout the state. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us, because together we power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
A new dairy product may be hitting the shelves in Louisiana, but is it safe? Health experts weigh in.
Chandeleur Island Chain embarks on an ecosystem restoration effort to save threatened wildlife.
And what are Entergy's plans for hurricane season? I spoke with the Louisiana Public Service Commissioner.
And our LPB colleague shares his first-hand account of 80th D-Day celebrations in Normandy. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get started.
Right. Hi everyone, I'm Kara St. Cyr.
And I'm Karen LeBlanc. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of Louisiana, the state we're in. But first,
people in Louisiana may soon be able to buy a new dairy product that has a growing following nationwide. Advocates say raw, unpasteurized milk has a range of medical benefits and could provide new revenue for small dairies. But health officials warn the product carries a host of potential risks. We dug into both sides of the issue.
We've been just super blessed with healthy animals, and I'm so thankful that I was able to have mentors that taught me, how to use herbs to help the goats.
Amanda Hannigan enjoys a simple lifestyle, not just for the peace and quiet, but for the health benefits she gets. She's been managing her own farm for 4 years and says one of the best additions is her herd of goats.
I have my first 3 goats that give me half a gallon each, and then the last 2 give me that last half gallon.
Hannigan uses the raw milk from her goats to feed her livestock and her family. She's milking by hand here, but she normally uses a machine that sanitizes and pumps the milk for her. But this milk isn't pasteurized or heated to kill bacteria like E. coli or Salmonella. She filters and stores everything herself. Hannigan is part of a raw milk movement growing in Louisiana and nationwide. They believe the government shouldn't regulate access to unpasteurized milk.
There's people that want those healthy options. And if we regulate it and do it correctly and do it properly, we can have a grade A or better of unpasteurized raw milk for consumers to buy.
We like to ignore the reality that pasteurizing milk also kills a variety of good bacteria.
Why not let people choose if they want to drink raw milk or pasteurized milk? Do you know what I mean?
These testimonies are from committee hearings on House Bill 467. The bill's original text authorized the sale of raw milk for human consumption. It was a heavily debated topic on both sides of the aisle.
When you eat foods with healthy, beneficial microbes in them, you build up your gut system to be more resistant, so that when you do get exposed to low levels of pathogens, you just have the innate ability to prevent infection.
Those opposed to the legalization of raw milk say that it harbors infectious bacteria, ones that will lead to an increase in hospitalizations. Mike Strain, the Agriculture and Forestry Commissioner, argued that potential risks could go beyond the individual drinking the milk.
It's about exposure. It's about putting this in a commerce. You live on a farm, you want to drink raw milk, that's fine. When you put these products into commerce, then you're outside of the silo and all these diseases we've talked about. And they can be pretty nasty.
The CDC lists raw milk as a public health concern. From 1998 to 2018, the CDC reported 202 outbreaks associated with drinking it. The outbreaks caused more than 2,000 illnesses and 228 hospitalizations.
It's particularly high risk for people at extremes of age, so really young children, elderly people, pregnant women are high risk. Anyone that's immunocompromised, so received an organ transplant or getting some sort of cancer treatment. For them, the most common symptom is bloody diarrhea, but that can have very serious downstream consequences, things like Guillain-Barré syndrome and hemolytic uremic syndrome. In very rare cases for very immunosuppressed people, it can cause death, but that is not common.
But Hannigan doesn't agree with these studies. In addition to owning her own farm, she's also the chapter president for the Weston A. Price Foundation, an advocacy group that focuses on access to more organic foods. She cites a study that says that pasteurization processes eliminate helpful bacteria that our bodies need.
It's a super health food. I really believe that. The vitamin availability of it is far superior to pasteurized milk.
Louisiana is one of 36 states that prohibits the sale of raw milk, but Hannigan says these regulations from state officials are an overreaction.
I believe the studies he's looking at are flawed.
But the state's Department of Health doesn't agree with this.
When you try to study the relative nutritional difference between raw milk and pasteurized milk, we haven't been able to find substantial difference because pasteurization ultimately doesn't change the fundamental nature of milk.
The bill was ultimately tweaked to eliminate the legalization of human consumption because of associated costs that the state would have to take on.
We have a very limited staff that does dairy inspection of pasteurized milk. So we have 3 people at the Office of Public Health that does all those inspections. So to do the same level of inspections for a product that has higher rates of contamination, like raw milk, would take more staff. So the fiscal calculation is based on our current dairy program.
If the bill is signed into law, raw milk can only be sold as food for animals. Products will be required to have a label warning against human consumption. But some lawmakers still believe the measure doesn't go far enough to protect people who do plan to consume raw milk from potential health risks.
From hashtags to headlines, here's what's trending this week. Okay, if you're planning to go to the beach, be aware of shark attacks, especially in Florida. And as someone who lived in Florida for 23 years, I can attest that it's literally the shark capital of the U.S. So you can go up to those high-rise floors of condominiums, look out over the water, and see the sharks swimming close to shore.
Have you ever seen one?
Yes, girl, quite a few.
So the reason why we're telling you this is because, 2 teenagers and a woman, they were hurt in a pair of shark attacks, and that happened between Miramar Beach and Panama City Beach. So the woman lost an arm, and one of the teenagers lost a hand. So it was a pretty serious attack. So we're just warning you, just be safe if you want to go out there to these beaches this summer.
That's right. Take precautions, be aware. Well, on to some happier news. The St. Aug Marching 100 band brought a little bit of Louisiana to France, right?
Yes. So they did go out to Normandy for D-Day celebrations, and we did say, they practiced, they learned historical music, but they also met up with another band that had a really interesting name. I'll let Karen tell you about this one.
Voodoo Orchestra, and they are from Utah. So we're like, what's the connection? Voodoo, Utah, but hey, they linked up and they performed together. So.
Yeah, and it came out pretty well, and it turns out that the Utah band will be coming to Louisiana to perform, so we'll have a little crossover episode, and I'm excited to see what they'll play.
A little cross-cultural pollination. I gotta love that. All right. Well, speaking of culture and culinary culture, to be exact, we have some award winners to announce.
Yes, we do. So James Beard winners. So 2 restaurants in Louisiana won, but one was a West African eatery called Dakar Nola. It won Best Restaurant. And, that's pretty exciting because they don't have a lot of West African restaurants in Louisiana specifically. So it's really nice that they were recognized.
I love that. And also there was a bar, it's called Jewel of the South in the French Quarter, that also won the James Beard Award. So congrats. And we need to go check them out.
Absolutely, we do.
Well, on to some happier news in the coastal waters. The Chandeleur Island chain, located in the northern Gulf of Mexico, is a critical storm buffer and an essential wildlife habitat for Louisiana. A large-scale restoration project is underway to rebuild the island, which is experiencing rapid land loss. Scientists project that the shrinking barrier islands will imperil 75 at-risk species of wildlife. Here's a look at efforts to restore the balance of Mother Nature in coastal waters. You're watching Chandelure gulls hatch on Chandelure Island. The species is unique to the island, and each hatchling is a huge victory for Mother Nature on this imperiled barrier island that serves as essential wildlife habitat and a storm buffer for Louisiana.
At one point was the largest concentration of colonial nesting birds in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Unfortunately, as the islands have deteriorated, that's not the case anymore, but it's still immensely important in terms of bird nesting habitat and bird roosting habitat. It hosts the most diverse assemblage of seagrasses in the northern Gulf of Mexico. It's one of the only places in the state of Louisiana that does grow seagrasses, which are really important, not just for birds, ducks, and other wildlife, but many, many fish and crabs, crustaceans, shrimp, you name it.
The Chandelure Islands are also home to Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, the most endangered sea turtle on the planet. Recent sea turtle crawls documented to cross the island show promise that continued restoration efforts will help the population thrive.
We've been working on the Chandelure Islands for decades. This is our first opportunity to really reinvest in the complete restoration of the island skeleton and try to put back the sand that's been lost over the years due to the storms like Katrina's and others that have washed along the shore and redistributed that sand into the shallow waters.
As part of Louisiana's 50-year coastal master plan, the Chandelure Islands are undergoing a large-scale maintenance project to restore its ecosystem. The project is in the engineering and design phase, with construction slated to start in 2026.
We will bring a large dredge out there. You can almost think of it like a vacuum cleaner that'll suck up sand off the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico and the Sound, and they'll either pump it or barge it a short distance from where they're taking it and put it right back on the island where it came from.
What is the approximate price tag of the restoration of it?
There's really no limit out here, right? Because this is a very large island that deserves all the investment that we can find that aligns with the needs of restoration that we have out there. So, you know, it could be $300, $500 million if we wanted to do everything.
Located 25 miles offshore, the uninhabited islands link habitats between the eastern and western regions of the Gulf of Mexico.
So putting that back on there not only restores habitat for all the animals that live out there, but provides protection for all the communities inside the islands like this one.
In the span of 5 years, the Chandelure Islands suffered a devastating double whammy. First, from Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and then from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010. Funds from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill settlement will help pay for the project.
We've got multiple funding streams for Deepwater Horizon. The largest is our NRDA, Natural Resource Damage Assessment dollars. Came in at $5 billion through CPRA for ecosystem restoration. Those monies have been going toward ecosystem restoration since about 2016. A large portion of the Chandelure restoration dollars will come from that selected pot. We're also looking at the Restore Act funds. The Restore Act dollars, we're requesting a large sum of money through the next funding priority list through Restore. That'll come out in about the middle of 2026. Hopefully that will supplement the other half of our large-scale restoration.
In 1904, President Theodore Roosevelt designated the Chandelure Islands chain as a national wildlife refuge. Once home to fishing and farming communities, over the years, the refuge's footprint has shrunk 90%. Restoration efforts aim to rebuild the island chain as a habitat for threatened wildlife and an important migratory stopover for thousands of birds.
Hurricane season comes with the double risk of severe storms and widespread power outages. Entergy, Louisiana's largest electricity provider, is working on a plan to reduce the frequency of outages and strengthen our infrastructure. I spoke with Public Service Commissioner Devontae Lewis about preparedness and whether Entergy's latest plans go far enough. Well, first off, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, but I'm going to jump right into these questions. So,
Hurricane season is underway, and it's expected to be especially active this year. From your perspective, as someone that's on the Public Service Commission, how prepared is Louisiana for hurricane season, and this hurricane season to be specific?
I mean, I think we're very prepared. The commission requires utilities to submit an emergency preparedness plan that evaluates how they would handle hurricanes specifically in Louisiana. And so those plans are being fine-tuned and filed with the commission. And I think there are decision points. I mean, however, I do think the challenge that we face is that, as many of us have heard, our weather is rapidly changing and the storms are getting stronger, which means things that we thought were up to scale maybe 5 years ago would now be outdated and antiquated to provide safety. But one of my biggest priorities is to ensure that the utilities have a structured plan to get power back on as fast as it can if Louisiana does face a storm this season.
So the priority is really reducing power outages.
Correct. Yes, I think that is my main focus. I think a secondary focus is protecting our infrastructure to ensure one of the challenges that we saw, especially in Hurricane Ida, is we lost a lot of transmission towers. Those are a lot harder to get right back online, because you have to build that infrastructure back up, reconnect the lines to the distributions, to the homes and businesses. And so ensuring that our infrastructure is secure, but also how do we reduce the amount of outages, or the duration of outages, I think is the primary focus that I will have this season.
And you mentioned Hurricane Ida and Laura and all of these different named storms that were really severe. I mean, it had a lot of impact in some areas, and as a result of that, residents saw their utility bill skyrocket. And given that this hurricane season is predicted to be especially active, like I said earlier, is it possible that people could see those utilities rise again?
Well, I'm hopeful they don't. I mean, one of the things that the commission allows is what we call securitization. That saves ratepayers a significant amount of dollars when we allow the utility to bond out the recovery of repairs that they believe they are owed due to the loss of infrastructure. I actually voted against the Hurricane Ida securitization vote on my first meeting because I felt like we did not do a good enough job of reviewing the prudency to ensure that the utilities were replacing their poles on time, that they had put in significant effects and plans. That's going to be a real challenge. That's something that I'm going to be looking forward to, and I'm watching each utility over the time and making it very clear that I want to see your operation and maintenance investments making Louisiana stronger and more resilient now and not just after a storm.
So is the commission currently looking at any utility increases or requests from Entergy at this moment?
Entergy does have a rate increase pending before the commission. I am pushing very hard that we do a full rate case, which is I would call a full audit, where we look under the hood of everything that Entergy is doing. Entergy is requesting what we call a formula rate plan, which is just a mitigated review that only really looks at the financial documents and makes some decisions. There's some price discrepancies there. I mean, I think Entergy filed a $433 million increase if we do a rate case. However, they said they would lower it to $173 million if we did a rate mitigation plan. I think there's some discrepancies in there. I think there's some money that is owed to customers, but this is part of the question around hurricanes. I want to see what they are investing in their operation and maintenance costs.
So this isn't the first time that Entergy has asked for more money to strengthen our infrastructure, but what specific projects would this money go toward? Yeah, so the commission last month approved $1.9 billion of spending. This would be 2,100 projects that are spread out across the state, and the vast majority of them are in pole replacements, making interconnections stronger, wires. I voted against it because I didn't think it took in a comprehensive approach to what we should be building a resilient system, looking at battery storage, looking at other options that could make the grid more resilient and reliable in power outages. But these 2,100 projects are going to start over the next 5 years, is what is projected. Now, while they're projected to be $1.9 billion. The commission did not vote on a definite cap. So these projects can go over, it just can't be more than these 2,100 projects that have been projected and picked by Entergy. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about what's in this project. So a part of that $1 billion project will focus on burying power lines underground, but only about 100 miles of power lines will actually be buried. I mean, why is why so little? You know, and they have other states that have buried power lines before, and it's proven to be effective. So why aren't we focusing more time and energy on that?
I think that's a fair point, and that's part of the reason why I voted no. I asked my colleagues and Entergy, why are we not being more comprehensive? Why are we only looking at changing our poles? One of the other issues that I have is that while we did add some steel poles, we still had a significant amount of investment in wooden poles, which have proven to be least sustainable when it comes to our changing climate and weather events. And so I think the commission has to require Entergy and all of our utility companies, for that matter, to really look towards the future, as we see that we're now hearing the National Hurricane Center talk about potential Category 6 storms. We have to also be innovative in the way that we regulate them. And I wish that we would have required more, but I think it is also a start. But I would say that burying lines underground is significant of cost. It does have, it is a lot more costly, but that's why I think we should have had a very much well thought out phase-in program rather than just kind of a drop in the bucket that I think this proposal does.
So throughout this interview, you've talked about how you've disagreed with a lot of things that have, you know, disagreed with Entergy on the price increases and some other projects that they want to work on. But where do you stand now?
Yeah, I am willing and able to work with not only Entergy, but all of the utility companies in Louisiana to ensure that we have a safe, reliable, resilient, and affordable utility structure in this state. However, I take my job as a regulator very seriously. I believe my job is to ask the tough questions. It is to examine all of the investments in infrastructure, and it's also to look towards the future. I think one of the challenges that we have faced ourselves with is we're often only looking at a one-size-fits-all solution instead of all. As we see businesses grow here in Louisiana, industry comes, our answer can't just be build more, build more, build more. We have to look at how we reduce energy consumption. We know Louisiana consumes some of the most energy across the country. Our utility bills are some of the highest in the nation. And so there's significant work that needs to be done, and I'm trying to work with our utility companies, but at the end of the day, they won't boss me around. I will regulate them.
All right, well, thank you so much. We are out of time, but we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We are going to flip the script by turning the camera on a team member often behind the camera, Brandon Mayer, who recently returned from Normandy to participate in the 80th anniversary D-Day celebrations, right?
So Brandon has a passion for military history and a soft spot for war veterans, which is perfect because it goes together with D-Day, Normandy, all of those things. So you recently went to Normandy, and you're going to join us for a behind-the-scenes look. And I want to talk about this first picture that we've got. So this picture is of a D-Day memorial in Normandy, and this was a dream trip for you. So tell us a little bit about it. What was it like going?
Yeah, I mean, it was life-changing, really. I had always wanted to go, and it being the 80th anniversary, I mean, I knew I had to be there. Just the atmosphere was going to be incredible, and there was so much to see and so much to do. I couldn't pack it all in one day or even 7 days. So I had a great experience in it, and for real, it like changed my life, just the perspective and the view of the French people there. So,
what was security like? Was it real tight?
I mean, for the 80th, everyone from Tom Hanks to Joe Biden was there, and it was ridiculous. The actual day, June 6th, was a nightmare to get anywhere, and you know, my trip was a little last-minute plan, so getting anywhere on that day and the 5th was almost impossible if you didn't have the proper clearance, the proper pass, the proper tickets. But like I said, just the atmosphere in the air, being there, was amazing.
So out of everything that you did, I mean, what were you the most excited to actually see?
I mean, honestly, the most exciting thing for me was right when I got off the plane, I met a World War II vet. I mean, not even a few steps off the plane, I was able to meet a World War II vet, and that was kind of the goal I wanted when I went there. And, you know, first thing, I met them, and then I also met some other people that were reenacting jumping out of the planes on June 6th. So I was able to see them and see, you know, hundreds, if not couples of hundreds of people jumping out and reenacting the day when they were not just storming the beaches, but also jumping out of planes to prep for storming the beaches.
So what was the mood and the vibe? Because as I understand from your Facebook post, because you did a great job with your little travelogue chronicling everything, there were the official celebrations, but there were a lot of spontaneous, like local celebrations, right?
Yeah, I mean, every little city in the area had their own little history to what their story was for that day, and you know, I mean, I was at my Airbnb and I was staying there for the day, and the Princess Anne was actually doing some type of ceremony, and I was able to see her walk and bagpipes and everything like that. So it was quite an experience. Yet again, like no matter where you were or where you went, there was some type of remembrance or tribute or some type of event that was just breathtaking.
I want to bring it back to what you said earlier when you were talking about meeting a World War II vet. What did this person have to say? I know there's tons of wisdom to be had there.
Oh, I had a few moments with him, but he was spry as ever could be, and he had a joke that was kind of funny. I said, you know, his name was Bob Sargent, and I said, Bob, you know, have you been to this place before? And he's like, oh yeah, I have, in 1944. So I thought that was kind of he had a jokes to say, and you know, I just shook his hand and took a picture with him and told him how appreciative I was for everything that him and his generation have done for us.
Yeah, it must have been an honor to be able to sit and talk to someone like that, especially because we're losing a lot of our World War II vets.
In 10 more years, we won't have any left. And that generation just means so much to me. I'm kind of an old soul myself, and to be there and to see like the sacrifice and to see it firsthand with the beaches and everything like that, it's just, you know, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to do that and be there.
So what's the final takeaway with the whole experience?
I mean, I think most Americans should try to experience it and go there and be a part of it in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, the 80th is a big deal, but just make the time to go and be a part of it. And the French people are more patriotic in some ways than we are in a lot of ways. So it was very much a great experience, and I think everyone should try and experience it.
And I love that you went, you know, off the beaten path, not only to Normandy, the headliner event, but some of the smaller communities as well, and really immersed yourself. You were saying people were dressed in period clothing, World War II. Yeah, absolutely.
It was, you know, it was like Mardi Gras, but for World War II in a sense. You know, there was just everyone was partaking in it, everyone's a part of it, and it was like traveling back into the 1940s, and it was really, really cool.
Brandon, thank you so much for stepping out from behind the camera to share your experiences with us. And I got to say, we're a little jealous.
We are.
Because we wanted to go as news media and cover the event.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I enjoyed telling my story.
Thank you. That's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime wherever you are with our LPB app.
You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows as well as other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Karen LeBlanc.
And I'm Kara St. Cyr. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support for Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided by
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid throughout the state. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us, because together we power life.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana.
And by Visit Baton Rouge and the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you. Thank you.